Welcome to Women in the News, a Georgia Windlist presentation examining Georgia news events through the eyes and perspective of our endorsed winning women and progressive allies. I'm Melita Easters, Georgia Windlist Executive Director. We're happy to have you join us for the second in a series of programming we hope to continue offering on a regular basis. On Thursday, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp outlined his 2021-22 budget priorities in the annual State of the State address. Later, Senate Minority Leader Gloria Butler, the first woman of either party to serve as a leader in the Senate, delivered the Democratic response.
Good evening. I am Senator Gloria Butler, and I am the Democratic leader of the Georgia State Senate. I begin by wishing you, everyone, a Happy New Year. Each new year opens with promise, and 2021 is no different. Last year tested us in ways most of us have never experienced in our lifetime. At times, it brought our state and country to the brink. The deadly COVID virus took the lives of thousands of family members and friends, wreaked financial disaster on our communities, devastated our economy, and shuttered businesses. The overlay of the 2020 elections heightened fear and added a layer of vitriol that tested the seams of democracy. 2021 ushers in the promise of change that will help us stand back up as families, as a state, and as a nation. Georgia has been at the forefront of national change. Cheers have gone up all around the country to celebrate the victories of U.S. Senators Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff. Not only will their victories improve the lives of Georgians, but they will help herald in the changes at the national level to ensure equity for all. I am proud to live in Georgia and to serve this great state with my colleagues. They share my commitment to improving the lives of our fellow citizens, along with a vision of what Georgia can and should become. I agree with Governor Kemp when he says we are deeply grateful to our frontline healthcare workers. They have been challenged in every way possible and yet stood strong for all of us. But I believe there is far more we could do to help ensure the good health of Georgians, create better pathways to distribute the vaccine, and to rebuild our state. For Democrats, transparency and equity sit atop every policy initiative we introduce. You see, we cannot move forward unless all our citizens move forward. And we do it in a way that is open, fair, and transparent. To that end, Democrats have created a policy strategy we call the 4 E's: equity, economy, education, and environment. Each of our 2021 legislative priorities has a lens trained on these priorities that are at the center of Georgia's recovery and advancement. Policy initiatives that top our legislative agenda include fair elections and redistricting. In 2021, new voting districts will be drawn based on the census figures from 2020. We are introducing legislation to create a third-party redistricting commission that will remove a good deal of the politics from the redistricting process. You see, voters should choose their representatives, not the other way around. When voters' voices are silenced by gerrymandering, it is not democracy. When a blue state has a red legislature, there's a problem. District lines should not be drawn by partisan politicians. Democrats will fight hard to remove barriers to the ballot box. We will fight against those who have one goal: to retain power. No excuse absentee voting was originally introduced by Republicans, and it has proven to increase voter participation and be secure. No excuse absentee voting saves counties time and money by reducing administrative burdens. It is convenient And if 2020 showed us nothing else, absentee voting protects our health. Make no mistake, attempts to curtail Georgia's no excuse absentee voting is an attempt to block some from voting. That is not equitable, and we will fight those attempts. Additionally, Democrats will work to advance same-day voter registration and block attempts to place undue ID burdens on voters. We realize there are places within the voting systems that can be improved. Most of these issues are practices, not statute problems. We will work with our colleagues to fix those practices that don't work well, but we will draw the line at curtailing voter participation. If the past year has shown us nothing else, it is the need for criminal justice reform. Georgia Democrats worked with Republicans last year to pass a hate crimes bill, and we will work with Governor Kemp and our colleagues this year to repeal citizens' arrests and to reform our criminal justice system. But the work is far from over. Democrats will introduce the Georgia Justice Act, a package of legislation to protect citizens from unequal treatment under the law and at the hands of police. We cannot have two sets of rules depending on the color of your skin, where you were born, who you love, or the religion you practice. Our reform package will include body cameras, better training, demilitarization, and a repeal of Georgia's citizens' arrest. 2020 was financially devastating for families and businesses. Many lost their jobs, their homes, and their businesses. While we believe our economy will spring back once we have contained the coronavirus, many Georgians will have difficult paths back. Democrats believe we can and should help Georgians get back on their feet. One way to help is to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. A Georgia resident making the current state minimum wage of $5.15 bring home about $1,000 per month after taxes. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Atlanta is $1,450. More than 90% of minimum wage workers are older than 20, and 2/3 of minimum wage workers are women. Thousands of Georgians continue to live paycheck to paycheck, and financial security has proven more and more elusive for average Georgians. Georgians need to be able to pay for basic necessities without government assistance, and we are one of only 2 states with a minimum wage below the federal standard. Companies that underpay workers are forcing them to rely on government assistance, which in turn means taxpayers pay the price. It's socializing cost and privatizing profit. At no time in our history have healthcare and the economy been more tied together. The COVID pandemic has shone a spotlight on this. Our hospitals are bursting at the seams. Our healthcare workers are strained. This pandemic has shown us that when we have inequality in healthcare, it impacts everyone. If one among us lacks access to a doctor, a treatment, or a test, it puts all of us at risk. Georgia ranks in the bottom 5 states for providing our citizens with health care. Georgia fell from 45th to 48th on access to health care, and 37 other states expanded Medicaid and have increased the numbers of citizens with health care coverage. It is clear Georgia has fallen behind. Today, 1.2 million Georgians remain uninsured, and many more are underinsured. The state of health care in rural counties has become progressively more dire. 8 rural hospitals have closed since 2013. Those that remain are struggling to stay afloat. The National Rural Health Association has called Georgia ground zero for rural hospital closures. Full Medicaid expansion is the path forward for Georgia. 500,000 Georgians would gain coverage, reducing the number of uninsured by half, and billions of our tax dollars would return to Georgia, saving lives, keeping rural hospitals open, and reducing costs shifting to those not on Medicaid. Last year, this simple solution, which would have guaranteed better coverage to more Georgians, was met with what we believe was politics, not common sense. Republicans argue that these waivers allow the state and federal government to experiment with new health insurance schemes. In reality, however, these waivers allow us to cover fewer Georgians and provide less comprehensive coverage. Georgians deserve the best, most affordable, and most comprehensive health care available. Democrats will continue fighting for full Medicaid expansion. And we will introduce legislation to address the nursing shortage, require proper ventilation in operating rooms, expand telemedicine, and expand broadband so the communities that need telemedicine the most can have access. We are at a historical moment when Georgia must dedicate itself to combating climate change. As global temperatures and sea levels rise, countries across the world look to the U.S. to lead the efforts toward a sustainable, carbon-neutral society. And Georgia has the opportunity to advance innovative legislation to address this threat. That's why Democrats plan to protect air quality and limit vehicle pollution, restore electric vehicle tax credits, ensure that new building projects are environmentally smart, and help farmers implement water efficiency best practices so that future generations of Georgians can thrive. Last year, you saw Democrats leading the change to protect Georgians from the harmful effects of ethylene oxide emissions and coal ash. Finally, Georgia's future is only as good as how well we educate our children for the future. The pandemic has shown all of us how critical our educators are, and educational dreams will remain dreams for young Georgians unless we do something to address the rising cost of higher education. Skyrocketing college tuition costs prevent many families from sending their kids to college. If our public schools remain underfunded, future generations of Georgia's children will be unable to realize their full potential and secure the opportunities necessary to create a better life for themselves and their families. We applaud the governor for putting additional funding in the state budget to support our schools. Democrats will oppose attacks on public education, such as school vouchers and attempts to punish schools for operating virtually during a pandemic. We will continue to work to raise teacher pay by implementing a tobacco tax to discourage smoking and fund the raises. Democrats believe in putting common sense over political expediency in order to preserve and expand essential services, improve the quality of life, and build a bright future for our children. My Democratic colleagues and I envision a future in which hard-working families can afford to live without relying on government assistance. We believe it is possible to raise the quality of life for every Georgian, especially in our rural communities. We believe in a just and equitable society. We believe in a quality education for all those who want it. We believe when everyone is included, we can get to that bright future together. Thank you and good night.
Over the next few weeks, we will keep our audience updated as Democrats and Republicans debate differing state budget priorities. Legislators take a break next week to hear State Department heads make their annual appearances before the Joint Appropriations Committee. These hearings will be conducted with some committee members listening in person and others participating virtually due to COVID pandemic protocols. All hearings will be live streamed. Earlier this week, Senators Jen Jordan and Elena took the well to voice dissatisfaction with Republican colleagues who had actively promoted false election fraud conspiracy theories, which created great controversy in Georgia and were also at the center of violence at the United States Capitol on January 6.
January 6th, 2021 will be forevermore known as a dark day in our nation's history. A bloody insurrection incited by the sitting President of the United States occurred when a violent mob stormed our Capitol building in an attempt to disrupt the democratic process. The participants believed that they were the ones saving American democracy rather than the ones trying to subvert it. They believed this, despite all credible evidence, because the most powerful person in our country, the president, told them that the election was stolen. But many others enabled the lie and helped destroy faith in democracy by lending their own names and positions of power to lies and conspiracies. In this combustible situation, even staying silent helped the doubts grow. I have very real affection for all of you, so it troubles me greatly that we had members of our body who furthered the narrative, where political ambition seemingly overcame judgment. Members who know better but still contributed to a spectacle where committee meetings of the Georgia State Senate were used as an official platform to spread lies and unfounded doubts. The bloody storming of the U.S. Capitol was unsurprising to anyone who has been paying attention. With authority comes responsibility, and our country desperately needed more leaders to use their positions of power to stop or blunt the lies and the fomentation of violence. Elected officials should encourage the public's faith in our democracy and its institutions. We should not sow doubt, anger, and faithlessness in the citizens who elected us. We shouldn't echo false claims when we know that to do so is to strike at the very heart of our democratic system. Perhaps all of those who imitated or enabled the president as he openly marched toward the January 6th culmination thought that the damage wouldn't be too bad, that they could gain the support and votes of his followers without cost to themselves or to our country. But they were wrong. There has been real damage done to our country, to our state, and even to this body.
You know, last January, the beginning of the 2020 legislative session, I am confident that no one in this chamber could have foreseen the circumstances that our state and country would encounter, that Georgians would encounter. Circumstances that no one in their wildest dreams could have foreseen. In 1 year, we have lost over 10,000 Georgians. Those are 10,000 people that people loved in this state. Probably people in this chamber have lost loved ones. 10,000. We could have never dreamed that so many would lose their jobs, their homes, their businesses, would lose their confidence in their elected officials and in their government. And never, never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined that coming into this legislative session, a year later, the biggest threat to this state and this country would not be the virus, would not be COVID-19. The biggest threat actually was coming from within, from the White House, from the halls of Congress, from this chamber. Members of this body aided and abetted the spread of information. They gave oxygen to a lie. live streaming on OAN and Newsmax, live streaming from the 4th floor of this building. Not once did we do this and learn our lesson, but twice, even after other senators received death threats and became the subject of the craziest conspiracy theory I've ever seen. Apparently, me and another senator were in Pennsylvania on Election Day counting votes up there. Yeah. Death threats, y'all. That's after the first hearing. But there was a second. There has been a tragic loss of life due to the actions of the president and those pushing debunked conspiracy theories. Folks know better. You know, words are powerful, especially when they come from those elected to represent the people. Those with official titles, those with power, and lies have consequences. Consequences that culminated in violence and death in scenes that I could never have imagined that I would witness, and I'm sure y'all are in the same boat. And for what? Well, I'll tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't done consistent with our Constitution or any of the ideals we have sworn to defend and uphold, or with truth or justice. None of that. It was done in service to a man, flesh and blood, just like any of us, who has somehow made grown men, good men, smart men, turn their back on their obligations and their country and their state. For what? You know, this body must grapple with its role in the attempts to subvert this election, to pretend like nothing happened, like this is just another day. It shouldn't be an option. It can't be. What we witnessed last night or last week, in the week since November 3rd, you know, you often hear people say, that's not who we are. This isn't who we are. The problem is, it is. It was. But it doesn't have to be.
In response to the COVID pandemic, masks are required in the chambers of both houses and in all committee rooms. Members of both houses are being tested for COVID twice a week during the session, and some legislators are already in quarantine after positive test results. Newly elected Representative Dr. Rebecca Mitchell is an epidemiologist, and she gave a brief morning order speech Wednesday to give her colleagues a tutorial about the United Kingdom's COVID virus mutation, which is highly transmissible.
So I just have 1 minute to show this to you, but I wanted to do a science morning order for you all. I know we see a lot of information and we have a lot of questions from constituents about the implications of the new strain of coronavirus that's here, that's been detected in one case in Georgia. This is data from the UK from a modeling group who looked there to ask how fast does this spread within the country, and is it more transmissible from individual to individual than previous strains? On the left, you can see that it took 6 weeks to go from one health district in the UK to all of the almost all of the health districts in the UK, of which there are 199. On the right, what you're looking at is how many people get infected, given the conditions in the UK, from a person who has older strains of coronavirus or one who has the new strains of coronavirus. On the bottom, you can see that that number is around 1 with the system that the UK had in place in November and December for older strains of coronavirus. So on average, they were under control with intervention. However, the newer strains are on the y-axis, and you can see that that number averages about 1.5. So despite the dramatic intervention that was in place in the UK, that was still able to transmit and the epidemic was able to rise. So we just need to be aware there is real data behind the public information coming to people, and we can find that data and understand it.
With the addition of Dr. Mitchell and Senator Dr. Michelle Au, there are now a total of 3 WIN list endorsed women with PhD medical degrees and 2 others who are medical professionals. We look forward to the impact they will have on setting policies around all healthcare issues. Thanks so much for joining us and being part of our audience. We will make these programs a regular feature provided the audience grows to demonstrate demand. Please help us build our audience by sharing today's program with friends. It is archived on our Facebook page, our website, and our YouTube channel. Follow Georgia WIN List across all your preferred social media platforms to learn about the topics we will cover during the next segment of Women in the News. Both Senator Jen Jordan and Representative Dr. Rebecca Mitchell are graduates of our WIN Leadership Academy program. Applications for the 2021 class are open through January 29. Please consider applying or encourage others to do so via the application page on our website. Georgia WIN List has built a powerful network of women leaders who have helped turn Georgia blue. Please consider supporting our work with your generous gifts today. Have a great weekend, and please share with a friend or two how to watch this program and join our network. As COVID case numbers spiral to record-setting levels across Georgia, please stay safe. Best wishes.
Put on